Instead of watching Home Alone for the umpteenth time, take a trip down memory lane and fire up some witty, inventive, and even thought-provoking staples in the satire genre. Here are 5 well-known films across the decades that deserve the spotlight in your personal cinema. Number 1. Dr. Strangelove, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Bomb from 1964. As with all forms of acting, part of having clever writing in any given production is being able to deliver that dialogue through engaging vocal expressions and elaborate body language. But what's noteworthy about Strangelove is that, despite the supposedly serious premise and roles, a political commentary on the Cold War and its key players, the US and Russia, the humor is actually rooted in that attempted seriousness. All the actors are immersed in this arms race, to the point where they seem absolutely convinced that they can actually succeed in deterring the other side from declaring nuclear war. That won't stop you from knee-slapping though, because the comically exaggerated cigar smoking, gum chewing, and facial gestures will remind you that the entire goal is to be counterproductive to deterrence anyway. Number 2. Monty Python and the Holy Grail from 1975. Join King Arthur and his Knights of the Round Table as they horse around on foot to the clomping of their servants' coconuts in search of the Holy Grail. That is, when they aren't being accused of arbitrary peasant repression, dueling with the Black Knight, starting a wedding party massacre, resisting the temptation of awfully frustrated nurses, orchestrating the defeat of a homicidal bunny. The Holy Grail's humor comes from its exceptional script writing and screenplay, its smooth mix of live action and cartoon animation sequences, and its musical numbers that for once do not feel out of place. British humor is a thing of beauty, as you'll be able to tell by most of the movies featured in this list. And this is one beaut you won't want to pass up, or else the knights who say "ni" will forever torment you in your sleep. Number 3. Brazil from 1985. Inspired by George Orwell's 1984, Brazil takes us on a symbolic journey with a Ministry of Information clerk named Samuel Lory, set in a futuristic totalitarian society, where the ministry stops at nothing to obtain every last piece of information about anybody and anything it possibly can. Sam, amidst his job promotion and the society's psychotic commitment to citizen obedience, tries to protect his alter ego love interest, Jill Layton, from being harassed by the ministry. This movie challenges not the idea of the state creating the war on terrorism, but rather by using actual terrorists to justify taking away the rights of its people, especially in the context of privacy violations. Brazil satirizes the absence of any real law enforcement other than murdering suspects without trials, the disregard for individual lives, propaganda, fantasies, and conservatism in the most extreme form, literally discontinuing the manufacturing of products and the advancement of technology. Number 4. The Princess Bride from 1987. Fair warning before viewing this film. There will be kissing in it. But it's more than just a fairy tale romance. The Princess Bride engrosses audiences of all ages in its fantastical world of epic adventures, heroic sword fights, and surreal sorcery. Indeed, the atmosphere is certainly well defined here. But so is the comedy, most of which is taken over by our lead, Wesley, and his encounters with various characters throughout the story. Speaking of the story, we get a unique introduction and narrating sequences in between certain scenes of the plot. A grandfather reads to his ill grandson, and it's almost as if they are interacting with and have a direct effect on what happens to the characters in the story and how the events play out. This is cleverly implemented in foreshadowing. Logic, surprisingly, is a magic in this film, and it somehow makes sense, even when magic is involved. And number 5, American Beauty from 1999. Unlike the previous entries in this list, American Beauty holds the distinction of being a satirical movie that doesn't necessarily have a comedic tone. It can be funny in the way the main character, Lester Burnham's, struggles to live less like an aging prisoner in a household with his materialistic wife and insecure daughter, and more like a freedom chaser after lost youth, respect from others, power over his decisions, and the beauty in life, represented by his obsession with his daughter's school friend, is completely ludicrous, with that last part being problematic, to say the least. But the overall theme of the story is tragic, because all the characters experience loneliness in a world where they must always pretend to be happy and functional in order to succeed, instead of being who they are and finding real happiness, whatever that means. Lester knows that he's a rebel against the lifestyle that's been painted for him, but as far as he's concerned, it's better than lying to himself and living the rest of his life like a pawn for people who care too much about their own. Do you know and love any satire films that you would want to recommend for future videos? Or even just to check out leisurely? Let me know in the comments below.